So, thank you for joining us today. Today is Sunday, February 22nd, and we are going to tune in as we usually do to walk ourselves down into a space of relaxation. And then we'll open up possibilities for connecting to the message and communication discussion afterwards if we feel called. So let's just start by breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. And in through your nose and out through your mouth. And as you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, invite your mind, body, and energy to relax, 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 relax. Let your toes relax, your feet relax, knees relax, and your hips relax. Continuing to breathe in and out. Allow your fingers to relax and your hands to relax. Chest to relax and your shoulders to relax. Throat to relax and your face to relax. And your mind, body, and energy. Relax, 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 relax. Relax, 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 relax. And as we move into this space of complete relaxation, we open up our energies to the ancestors, loved ones, and friends to come together today to heal and guide us and lift us to the highest version of ourselves in the light of the universe, so we may hear what we need to hear, know what we need to know, connect how we need to connect, and be what we need to be for our highest and best good, and the highest and best good of all involved, as we open up space to give and receive. And today we're going to talk about, if you don't know where you are, it's very hard to map where you're going. The concept of tuning into the authentic self and getting to know the self, being your own best friend. And I'm going to start by reading a little bit from How to Love by Thich Nhat Hanh. And it is page 94. Love as an offering. To love is not to possess the other person or to consume all their attention and love. To love is to offer the other person joy and a balm for their suffering. This capacity is what we have to learn to cultivate. This capacity is what we have to learn to cultivate. So sitting with that, one of the things that we know about non-possessiveness or co-creation, collective freedom, is that one of the core ingredients of that is self-trust. If I know myself, if I trust myself, if I tune into myself authentically, then that feeling or need of control or ownership or having this attachment to anything, especially relationships, isn't necessary because I trust myself. I trust myself to know what I need in the next moment. I will be able to tap into how I want to connect in the next moment. I will be able to tune into. And so it doesn't take constant contact or constant connection in order to be able to feel and know love. And kind of spreading that out into the message that I wanted to talk about today that is even true with the self. Now that sounds odd, but there's difference between being and doing. Is doing is an action. It's something that I have to actively consider, connect to, touch constantly in order to keep it going. If I had to consciously think about breathing in order to breathe, then we probably wouldn't have as many humans on the planet, because we go into our unconsciousness, we go into distraction, but breathing still happens. I'm not thinking I need to breathe, I need to breathe in, I need to breathe out. Our body just naturally breathes. And so what I'm inviting in today is knowing yourself in a way that is like breathing. You don't have to control, force, connect in an actionable way to be your authentic self. If you practice and learn and create a consistent, persistent pattern with yourself of knowing the self. If it is natural for me to go to my heart center and tune into my authentic self when I'm making a choice, a decision, an action, then I know that's where I'm coming from. If my practice has been to connect with the ego self, where the shoulds are, I should be this, I should do that, my learned behavior says this, I'm falling into this pattern, I'm recreating the same lesson again. If that's where our consistent and persistent work has been, in that tuning into the ego, the fear, the control, the manipulation of self or others, then that will be our natural positioning. And that's what we'll fall into when it comes to the non-thinking part of who we are and how we are. So my belief in this is, if we tune in, if we're talking about how, if you don't know where you are, you can't map where you're going. You have to orient to the authentic self before you begin traveling to your destination. So, orientation before destination. How do I center into who I am and create this natural, neutral, authentic connection of self that doesn't take a lot of action or force or thought to get to? And part of the ingredients of that is getting to know yourself. If you don't know what you like on your pizza, it will be really hard to immediately tune into yourself and say what you like on your pizza. And that's a really simple example, but I'll tune into that story really quickly. It was probably 15 or 20 years ago at 3 a.m. at a pizza place where I was with a bunch of people, and they said, "What did you want on your pizza?" And I said, "It doesn't matter, whatever you want." And they were like, "You have a choice. And if I don't like your choice, we can get a half and half pizza, and you can have what you want and I can have what I want." And I was like, phew. That was, during one of my big growth cycles. And that simple thing in itself allows us to be able to recognize, like, we do have an authentic want, an authentic need, an authentic ask within ourselves, and how we give ourselves permission to tune into that is really important. So I always say, be your own best friend. And what do best friends do? Best friends check in, they tell the truth gently, they celebrate growth, cultivate relationships, they're attentive and connective. And oftentimes we put a lot of our authentic self work into those connections with others, hopefully. But we rarely turn it onto ourselves and become our own best friend. So, by being able to check in with yourself. How am I feeling about this right now? In my heart center, in my authentic self? Am I being honest with myself, or am I repeating a pattern? Am I just doing what I think I should versus what I feel like I know? Am I celebrating myself or only critiquing myself and passing judgment? And so recognizing, just like the little story I told, that version of myself, however long ago, while my mind was blown in the moment, I didn't realize the impact that that lesson would have to future versions of me. And I could have judged myself for being at a pizza place at 3 a.m. or whatever perceived judgment could have happened, and that couldn't have been a spiritual moment, when really what I recognize is like every part of ourselves, when we start living from our authentic self, is a spiritual moment. Every, from washing the dishes to putting your feet in the grass, can be sacred time with yourself if you are with yourself. But if I'm typing on the computer and I'm not in my authentic self and not in my sacred self, then that's a doing. I'm doing that. If I'm working in the same manner, but I'm doing it from my sacred self, my authentic self, then all the work I do is sacred and embraced by that sacredness. And so we have to recognize where we check out, where we unplug, where the ego takes over, and how we can gently guide ourselves into knowing the self well enough to go, oh, I just, stepped into my fear self or stepped into my control self. Like, how do I call myself back to the authentic self? How do I truly feel? And technically, if you're making choice A or choice B and the ego's making it or the authentic self's making it, 50% of the time, maybe, I don't know the actual percentage, like they're probably going to be making the same choice. And, if I really love pizza and my authentic self and my ego self both say yes to pizza, the difference is where it comes from in our energy in making that choice. If I'm checked out and my fear self or my ego or my shoulds are making the choice, then I'm putting that power outside of myself, power being an odd word, but the truth of it in energy, like I'm putting that outside of myself. If it comes from inside and my authentic self, it becomes a sacred moment. It becomes an uplifting position. And that's how we live as the authentic self, and we live as the true self. And it creates this expansion in our world that allows us to, I've been soapboxing about alignment. It allows us to live in alignment because we're not living from our stories. We're not living from what we should be doing. We're living from this current moment that has parts of my previous self in it, but it is my authentic self. I use the term the me of now. Is this the me of now making this choice? Is this the me of now tuning into whatever this is? And it takes courage. It takes courage to make those changes, to really recognize I'm going to put this time and energy into it. And I'm going to step out of that role of what I should be doing or what, the next logical choice is or what the formula is that I've been taught. But once you get there and you create it as a consistent and persistent space of tuning into the self and then moving out into action, choice, decision, then that's when alignment, the sweet, sweet spot of alignment, comes in and allows for you to create existential growth. 2 plus 2 equals 4, 4 plus 4 equals 8, 8 plus 8 equals 16. And we just magnetize and magnetize and magnetize instead of finding ourselves drifting or, being distracted or taking 10 times the energy to do the same thing. Because when we're in the authentic self, we're tapped into the universal source energy, which is infinite. When we're in action, the doing of things, we're working with our finite energy, our singular energy. So therefore, it not only takes from us, but it takes more because we're working with only what we are, only our own energy. So it's the difference between, here's what's in my toolbox, even if I've sharpened them and they're beautiful tools, I only have this. But if I lift up into the universe, I have all this wisdom that I get to connect to these tools that allow for me to use them in ways I may not have known or seen. And the other big energy that we're shifting into, and maybe we'll talk about it next, Love Churches, we don't know what we don't know until we know it. And so by sourcing universal energy, the collective wisdom, we get to know more at a different rate compared to my singular energy chugging along, trying to figure things out. So alignment begins with this honest orientation into the self, a calibration of your truths, loving yourself, being your own best friend, and recognizing that through that honest vantage point and viewpoint, then you get expansion, you get amplification, you get growth. So just pay attention for the next few weeks. Just tune in and recognize, which version of you, is it the authentic self, or is it the self outside of you, the acting self? Are you being or are you doing? And instead of shaking a finger at yourself because you didn't get it right, recognize that just bringing that awareness to it. If I see myself drifting and I bring awareness to call myself back, oh, this is my authentic self. This is how I truly feel. This is where I truly am with that choice and decision. This is what I'm prepared to connect to right now, the me of now. Then soon that will be the first choice. You won't have to drift before you call back in. And there's not any other actions you have to do towards that. There's plenty that we can do, but that simplicity and just saying, like, wait, I think that's my story making that choice and decision. How do I truly feel? And then we don't even have to recognize, is it my story? You go to make a choice, you say, oh, how do I truly feel? Oh, this is where I am. And then you don't even have to practice it consciously, because you will practice it in your authentic self subconsciously. It will just become the way that you do things. So I hope that that message speaks to you and that you feel connected with that. We will do an overall card pull from the Art of Energy Healing Oracle deck. And this is a creation of Amy Gordon and myself. It's a really beautiful soul-centered connection that works with that awareness, acceptance, and action piece through the chakra system. You can see we have different colored chakra cards and a workbook that goes with it. And then I'll stop the recording and we can have a little chat for those of you who want to have a little chat. So let's go ahead and pull a card. And the card that comes forward is card number 38. And 38 is the energy of judgment or denial in the third eye. And each have Amy Gordon's amazing art, different art on each side, on each backing. And then a poem that goes with her art is, we all have an internal record that is playing. Stop and listen to what your lyrics are saying. And then there's an awareness on the back that you want to pay attention to. Bring awareness to your inner critic. Is it the more prevalent voice in your head? Right on theme, universe. Thank you. And then we go to the book, and the book has a little deeper connection to the awareness, and then an energy action that you can do to work with that energy in your system to bring it to healthiness. So awareness, bring awareness to the critic. What does the judgmental voice in your head tell you when you make decisions? Does your critic match your true self? Can you determine if the critic's voice is most prevalent in your thoughts or actions? Are there areas where the critic is louder than others? Everything we've just been talking about. And I truly pulled that card randomly. This deck is amazing, if I do say so myself. Energy action, awareness. Awareness is one of the keys to change. We cannot change what we don't see. Today, shine a bright light on your critic. As you are aware of its presence, gently accept that it once had a space in your world. Make a mantra that addresses the critic. Critic, thank you for protecting me during a time of struggle. Today, I am safe. I do not need this tool right now, and release the urge to use it. So let's say that mantra again. Dear critic, thank you for protecting me during a time of struggle. Today, I am safe. I do not need this tool right now, and release the urge to use it. Use that mantra as you see the critic rise. All right, thank you all for joining. I hope that you are all well and in good spirits, and that you feel whole, and that you are blessed, and that you always be your soul.